Hello everybody and welcome back. Welcome to the studio. My name is Catherine Bobkoski. I'm a fine artist and teacher. And today is Monday and it's been such a long week already, right? I know it's how we all feel on Mondays, right? I've been teaching a lot today and I'm a little tired, but I still have some energy left in me and I am really excited about the painting that I am preparing for. I have an idea for a big painting that I want to start. It's quite ambitious. I don't really know what I'm doing. So to get ready for the process, I'm doing some studies, some preparation works, and I thought it might be interesting to share some of that process with you. So it's not really a demonstration, it's not really an instruction, since, as I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but it might be interesting to watch. It might be kind of, cool to hear my thoughts about it. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around and let's get started. All right, so we're at the easel. Here's my painting. This is, just to be clear, this is just a study. I have my reference over here on my iPad Pro. The whole painting is something like that, sneak peek for you. But in this study, I'm just painting this little section like that, which is sort of like my focal, my main, like, flowers that are going to be the most prominent in the painting. So that's what I'm really working on today. This is probably slightly bigger than what it would end up being in the finished painting, but the finished painting, it's pretty big. It's pretty sizable. This is, oh my gosh, how big is this? I should know what the size is. I think this is 18 inches by 18 inches, this particular painting. It's a hardboard panel. It's a nice surface, so just kind of a good general surface to work on. But the final piece is going to be more like 24 inches by 24 inches. I think that's the final. So this is bigger than what would actually, what this one small section will actually be painted as in the final work. But it's really challenging. I mean, I know this is small, but you can see there's a lot of foliage, there's a lot of flowers. So these flowers I want to have as sort of more of a fully realized kind of thing, like more of a fully developed little piece of this painting. And then a lot of the other flowers will be kind of out of focus, or maybe kind of drifting in and out of focus, something like that. And even these flowers too, I kind of want this one, this big one here, to be almost like a little focal point, the most fully realized thing in the entire painting. And these other flowers kind of dancing around will kind of, my idea is anyway, for them to kind of like drift in and out of focus a little bit. But it's going to be so hard. So I have ideas of what I want to do today, what I want to try out here. I have a couple of thoughts, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started painting. Here is my palette, by the way. Can you see all of it? I guess so, yeah. That's my palette. Yeah, I know this is such a mess. I usually like to have my palette just a little bit more organized than that, but whatever, we are winging it slightly today. Just sneaking in some painting time, when I probably should be like cleaning the kitchen or something. I think I'm gonna work maybe on this one right here, because this isn't really painted in. This is pretty much just my initial block in, and there's nothing really on top of it. So I think this is a good place where I can start to experiment with some things. Maybe I can do a bit more on this larger one as well. But let's see, I really wanted to try something here, and I have no idea, as I keep saying. It's all kind of an experiment. But I want to see what could happen if I try to describe these flowers, which are like pretty subtle. They're not very, they don't have a ton of depth to them the way that roses, which that's kind of my normal thing that I'm painting all the time. Like roses have just so much depth to them and so many like layers and stuff like that. And these flowers are kind of more flat in a way, so that means I have to be kind of, I guess, thoughtful in how I start creating some depth. I like that though. That did something. That little move right there. That right there. So now this little petal is sort of going in front of this bottom one here a little bit more. There's just like it's like a little nuance. You don't get all the like dramatic layers and all of the really complex depth that you get with a rose, but in some ways it almost makes it harder. It's like you just have such a limited space to deal with. You have to really just, articulate it as cleanly and as clearly as you can to really get it. So, I mean, I love daffodils, but they're kind of hard. I would almost say, like, to anyone who wants to work more on painting flowers, it's almost easier to start with something that's a little more complicated, like something like a daisy or maybe even a sunflower. Although sunflowers can be really tricky, but these are challenging. I'm not gonna lie, challenging. I'm gonna set a timer. I have one of these. It's like covered in paint. Look at it. And now it's beeping at me. But I'm gonna set one of these little like cube timers like that. This thing is so handy. I love it so much. I use it all the time. That's why it's so grimy and covered in oil paint. Sorry about that. But if you're an artist, I think it is just one of the best things that you can get. It's so useful to just set a timer, work for a reasonable amount of time. I set it for 30 minutes, which that's a decent amount of time to work. You shouldn't be working for, a big, long stretch of time all at once without taking a break. Like, take breaks. It's very important. Otherwise, you can't really see your work very clearly. I'm trying to like build up this petal here to try to. It's going really green. That's it's a challenge definitely with working with yellows, that they will often tend to go kind of greenish. I'm gonna just remove that and see if there is. Maybe I can just leave it, even though I'm annoyed because I feel like that petal isn't the right shape, or it's not quite the right size or whatever, but I have to also think about the fact that this is a study. Number one, it's only a study. So I don't have to necessarily have a perfect drawing here. But also I kind of want some of these flowers to have a little more of like an abstract sort of quality to them. I've done so many like really tight paintings lately of flowers, like really pretty highly rendered things, which I really enjoy doing. I'm also just trying to branch out a little bit, try things that I don't do as often, basically. So this is one of them, daffodils, and painting larger than I typically paint, so that I can, learn some new things and do something different. Painting big is actually pretty fun. I have painted some pretty large paintings before, and it's just been a while. I got on a habit, I guess, of doing a lot of very small paintings. And I definitely developed kind of a comfort zone with the size of the paintings that I create. So Actually, I kind of like small paintings personally. I'm a really big fan of the uh, Dutch still life painters, the Golden Age Dutch still life painters. Um, and a couple of years ago, I was in Florence in Italy, and at the where was it? I think it might have been at the at oh gosh, um, oh Pitti Palace. Yeah, it was at the Pitti Palace. Um, there was a painting there by Jan van Huysum. Um, it was just a little tiny painting, floral still life painting, quite small, maybe like around 12 by 16 inches, maybe slightly bigger than that. Um, but it was the most incredible painting I had ever seen, pretty much. And there was obviously a ton of amazing art to look at in Florence, obviously. That's the whole reason you go, is to look at beautiful artwork, and it was incredible. But that painting, that was the most intense experience of looking at a painting I think I ever had in my life, for real. This small painting, and I still think about it, what it was like to look at it, because it was like you had to go in fairly close to look at it. These paintings, if you've never seen one in person, they're very, very, very detailed. They're extremely detailed. Um, and when you look at them, you have to get quite close because the detail is minuscule and the paintings are not very big. And so it was like almost like going underwater. Like you have to hold your breath and go underwater and like dive into this painting and like explore it and look around. And it was like being lost in this little world of these beautiful flowers. Um, and then at some point you kind of have to like take a breath and come back out. But it was absolutely like incredible looking at this painting. And that kind of like intense, almost otherworldly experience of looking at a painting. Um, I, it would be amazing to achieve something like that. I'm not saying that it has to be work in a certain kind of way to look like that. Um, Not necessarily like detailed or small or whatever, but that was a intense experience looking at that painting. And I would just love to make something, even a tiny, tiny fraction like that. So, um, yeah, anyway, well, here I am painting this little flower. It is bothering me a little bit that some of these shapes are quite wonky compared to my reference image, which I'm kind of noticing. That was kind of fun. It's almost like linear moment here around that one petal. Maybe I'll keep that. So this brush has like it's kind of a beat up brush. You can see that okay. But it makes kind of a striated mark. It's kind of interesting. I could maybe brush back through the flower in some places to, because they do have this like a little bit of a striated kind of effect. Or I guess the petals really have like little, veins and such, so I can maybe imply a little bit of something with that. It's kind of interesting. I'm starting to feel okay about that one. I want it to be a little bit softer. So this is just a very soft watercolor brush. And I'm just gonna sort of drag that over the surface. Just kind of flatten a little bit of the texture that is there. The little crown here in the center of the daffodil, that is called a corona, by the way, a crown. It's kind of misshapen and a little wonky. in my painting it is. It's perfectly normal in the reference image. The block in that I did for this painting was pretty quick, and it's making me feel now like I was possibly, because there are so many flowers, I was maybe a little too loosey-goosey with it. You know, if you're only painting a couple of flowers, if you're only painting like a little bouquet or whatever, you can be fairly loose with the drawing and work it out as you go along, and it's fine. I'm feeling now like because I have so many flowers in this painting to deal with, it's a little intimidating, and I'm also realizing that each of these daffodils only has a certain number of petals. Like they're pretty precise, actually. If you're painting a flower that has, 100 or 150 petals, like a rose, like the roses I paint, it's like you don't have to really care so much about all of them. Like each one becomes less important. But these flowers have 7, I guess. So you need to get them all right. So that's the situation. And maybe that means I have to be a little more precise with that initial statement of the drawing. So that's just kind of the stuff I'm thinking about right now. I mean, this is why you do studies, right? This is the whole point. That's why I'm doing this, is to figure out what I don't know, basically, right? This is the kind of painting that I've never really tried to make before, and every painting is complicated, right? I mean, every painting has its own little challenges, but if you make similar enough paintings, you can just anticipate the challenges better, right? Or you just know enough that you kind of know what difficulties are going to come up. And in this painting, I don't even know what I don't know. So, and it's actually an exciting place to be if you've been painting for a long time. It's, I think, actually good to be in that position of I don't even know what I don't know. It's so new and so different and so like much bigger than what I typically do. I don't even know. So I'm trying to embrace it. And I mean, I've been painting for a long time. Like it's not like I'm completely clueless, but even if you've been painting for a long time, it doesn't mean that you know everything. So maybe we'll be better at anticipating the difficulties that are going to come up. But sometimes that, it kind of prevents you from exploring too. If you can look at a subject and see right away how intense and crazy and challenging it's going to be, you can talk yourself out of doing it. And so I'm trying to not talk myself out of doing anything, basically. We're just gonna make it happen. I kind of like something that's happening on this particular flower. It's like nowhere near done at all. But something that I like that's happening is that I'm starting to build up a little bit more paint around the center. And the edges, like over here, this is quite thin. And I'm kind of liking that contrast because with these flowers being, in a way, kind of flat, not having as much like depth and layers compared to something like a rose, I feel like that that contrast between a little bit thicker paint and a little bit more transparent paint I'm just enjoying that contrast. So I think that that is something that I would like to carry on into the final painting, which means I really have to pay attention to how much I am, covering up or working over those little transparent areas. So I have to just really be mindful to not overdo it in an area like that. To not just keep painting, 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 rendering, rendering, rendering until it's done. So that's something I need to. It's something I need to think about. And again, it's like I don't even know what I don't know. That's that's exactly what I mean. Um, I had no thought of that really until I just started painting just now. And again, that's why you do studies. Really want to get the corona here, just like looking right, like it's pointing in the right direction, like it has some perspective on it. I know I'm just noodling with it, like, which I have a tendency to do, to just sort of sit and mess with something for a long time. So I'm going to try not to do that on camera because it's probably going to get boring. Sort of creeping up on a couple of little shapes here, just trying to explain without over explaining. It's fine to paint with your fingers, by the way, just wash your hands. Not a big deal. This is oil paint, by the way. I don't think I said that, but maybe it's obvious. I don't know. But this is oil paint. I'm primarily an oil painter. I don't like that. Nope. That's better. I'm trying to lean back occasionally. I keep getting sort of sucked into this thing. It's very, I don't know, I can get really fascinated with just one little flower like that, so. And I started on this one down here, if you noticed that, and I completely got distracted by this one. Let's back up maybe and go back. All right, I kind of have a little bit of a, I don't totally want to say problem, but I feel like these two are gonna like smush together because the values are gonna end up being really close. And maybe it's okay for them to smush together, I don't know. Maybe it's fine. It's just hard for me to tell right now. I'm gonna keep saying it, that's why I'm doing study. That's the whole point. So it's kind of, I don't know, hopefully it's interesting to watch this kind of stuff. Sometimes I know you go into a class or you take a course online or whatever, and it maybe seems like, oh, well, if you're a real artist, if you're like, quote unquote, like a real true professional artist, then you just always know what you're supposed to do, or you just automatically like know how to do things. No, you don't. It's not the case at all. Everyone's just figuring it out. Um, and I think really like if you're an artist, you should always be learning and trying to challenge yourself and trying to do things that you don't necessarily know how to do. Where did that come from? Was that the color I mixed? That was weird. Why does it look so red? Huh. Case in point. I guess I'll get rid of that too. Yeah. Okay. I think that kind of worked a little bit, like kind of painting around this bottom petal. It makes it show up. And then it creates some depth for this flower behind, so it kind of pushes back underneath. So yeah, maybe that's okay. I'm going to paint a little bit around it. So I'm going to let this guy, I think I want this guy to kind of stand out more and to be more like prominent in the picture. So I'm going to make this one, the background behind here, a little bit less contrasty because I have this really dark behind this daffodil. I'm going to try to make this one not have quite as much contrast. Something like that. Could probably go a little bit darker here. That was probably too dark, so I'm just going to make an adjustment. In his book, Alla Prima, Richard Schmid says something like, it's not a mistake unless you leave it there. So I think about that a lot when I'm painting, that it's, it's okay to mess up, or to, do something goofy that you didn't intend to do. But just fix it. Like, don't lose your head. don't go nuts. Or don't panic. Certainly don't panic. Never helps to panic. Just make whatever correction needs to happen. It's just that simple. I mean, oil paint is really forgiving. I think sometimes people assume like, oh, it must be like so difficult or something, or so challenging, or whatever, because it's oil paint. It's kind of like, I don't know. I guess it sort of has a cachet to it or whatever. But it's not. It's actually very forgiving. So just mess it up and then fix it. It's fine. Not a big deal. Got a little fan brush here. This might be too dry for this to work, but just want to try kind of like brushing things back a little bit, pushing that back even more. That was nice. Okay, that did something. I guess I'm trying to think about what is the right amount of information for some of these different areas. Like, what is the smallest amount of information, or what's the most like efficient amount of information that I can give, and still have it look like what it is. I didn't like that. Let's get rid of that. So I think of it sometimes almost like respecting the subject, or um, like having a certain amount of truth for what you're painting. I like to think about painting flowers like I'm giving them the same amount of respect that you would give a human subject. Like if I was painting a portrait of someone, you wouldn't just riff on a face. you know, you would want to be respectful. You would want to respect their likeness, or the things that they're the things that they are particularly proud of in their appearance, or the things that they would like you to emphasize, like maybe the color of their eyes or something like that. I don't know. It's like the same thing. I want to feel like I'm respecting the flowers as a subject. So to paint them with respect, but at the same at the same time, I'm trying to, at least in this case, paint them in a group, which is very different from painting a little individual, like tender little portrait. It's not the same thing, so we need a different strategy. And that's partially what I'm working out here. That's better. And I am learning something doing this. I like how this little flower is really like singing. It really feels three-dimensional. It's kind of popping out of the surface a little bit. So I'm kind of happy with that, and I'm happy with the way that looks in context. Okay, so now you can see better what I'm talking about. This little flower here is just sort of like emerging out of the chaos or something. It's like, it starts to feel, it's still really simple, but it starts to feel a little bit three-dimensional. I really like how that looks next to this wildness over here, like how chunky this is, or like this chunk over here. I think that looks really cool. And even this little bit of like foliage down here that I haven't really finished, I think it looks really cool with this little flower, so you're not really fully finished, at least not what I would consider finished, but just a little bit more like refined. I think I kind of like it. But obviously that means that I might have to really think about leaving some things in the painting this chunky, which would be pretty, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm interested. And that was the whole point of me, making a painting like this, which is not a typical thing for me. I'm wanting to branch out a little bit and do something that's not really in my comfort zone. So we're doing it basically. All right, so I'm basically I'm gonna stop filming so that I can really pay attention to what I'm doing. But I hope that was interesting. I hope it's helpful maybe to see a little bit of what it actually looks like to work through a process like this. It is very much an exploration. It is very much seeking the answers and hoping to God that you just sort of stumble across them just by walking vaguely in the right direction. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but that's the progress so far. Maybe you'll see more in the future. Thanks again for watching. And if you want to learn a little bit more about some of my favorite painting tools, maybe you're wondering about this thing that I was using earlier, check out my free brush guide. I'll put a link for that in the description below. You can also find like online courses and stuff like that where I talk about it more. So, go take a look. And I hope I see you again in the studio very soon. So take care, everybody, and happy painting.